Good morning. Hello, all my lovely friends and students. How are you guys doing today? Of course, as always, especially after last week, I want to check. Can you guys see me okay? Can you hear me okay? Let me know. Let me know. Good. All right, it looks like our students are checking in. So again, let me know. Can you guys see and hear me okay? All right. Good morning. And again, I'm trusting you guys can see and hear me okay. Oh, wonderful. Well, first I have to apologize. So apologize is to say you are sorry. So I apologize that last week we were not able to have class. As we know, technology and the internet is usually a good thing. It's usually a great thing. Point in fact, technology and the internet allows us to have class and allows us to have friends from all over the world. But sometimes technology and the internet can be frustrating. And that's what happened last week when I don't know what the problem was, but class would not air. So that means it would not go to video. So my apologies, and I really did miss you guys, because this is one of the highlights of my teaching week. So highlight just means something that we are excited about. And I love teaching, and I love being here at SCEL, the Spokane College of English Language. And what's always really special, and I think I'm very lucky to have, is this Smrt class, where once more I can have friends and students from all over the world. And so with that, as always, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or even good night, because I know that we are all over the world. And as always, I want to say hello, and so good to see you again to our usual students. So we've got Dari, Rosa, the French Leo, Steve. Hello, Steve. Hopefully Baharat will be joining us soon. And then I see a lot of new students, which is so exciting to me. That really, it makes my heart happy to see my usual wonderful students, and then, oh, hello, JB, and then to see new students as well. So with that, if you are a new student and joining us for the first time, or this is your first video that you are watching after we go ahead and finish the lesson and we air the video, which is really nice because we only have an hour together, and if there are things that I go over that you're not quite sure about, it's so nice to have this already recorded so that you can go back and rewatch the lesson. And with that, there are over 50 other lessons just for this class that you can watch. So this class is pre-intermediate English with me. My name is Abby, and once more, I'm coming to you from beautiful Spokane, Washington. And again, if this is your first time, you'll see me look over to my left a lot, and that's because, oh, hello, Khalil. That's because I have a live feed going and we have all our comments. And French Leo, I just saw your question, and no, that would not be a very good idea, because then who would take over the class? And I see Rosa, no. Oh, hello, Bahara. I was hoping that you would join. Excellent. And again, Ibrahim, the Bari, Ishan, Khalil, Fatis. I see all these great new students. So I'm so excited. I really am excited. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. As always, I will do my best when you ask questions in our live chat. I'll do my best to get to them, but because we only have an hour's time, I do have the lesson that I have to make sure that we get through. So with that, if I am not able to answer your questions or I'm not able to get to your comments, please, once this video is posted, go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom and there's the comment section. If you would like to post any comments or if you would like to post any questions there, I will certainly do my best to check that and get back to you and help you with your comments or questions, help you continue in your English acquisition. Acquisition is just a big fancy word that means to acquire, so to get. So to learn more of English, and in particular, as I said, pre-intermediate English. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And today we are going to be talking about modal verbs again, but we're going to be going over some different modal verbs, in particular should and must. So since we were not in class last week and we're going over modal verbs, which there's a lot to modal verbs, I want to do just a quick review so that we all understand what we're learning about. So with modal verbs, we know that, modal verbs are just auxiliary verbs and they express necessity or possibility. So necessity, if something is necessary, it means it has to be done. It has to happen. That's necessity. Possibility means it's possible. It could happen. It could not happen. We're not saying the degree or how strong the possibility is. We're just saying it's possible. It could happen. So our modal verbs, once more, are our auxiliary verbs that express necessity or possibility. Well, auxiliary verbs, what are auxiliary verbs? Auxiliary verbs are verbs that are used in forming tenses. So we know we have past tense, present, future. So auxiliary verbs used in forming tenses. And if you have questions, because again, I know this is a lot of information, if you have questions with our modal and auxiliary verbs, you can go to lesson number 50. Today is lesson number 51. You can go back to lesson 50, and that's where we first introduce and first start talking about our modal verbs. So now that we have a little bit of memory that we're gaining, that we are recalling with modal verbs, and then in addition, we know that modal verbs, they add a special meaning to an infinitive verb. Let's look at our example. It will rain. So again, there's our future tense. It will rain. I may or might, and we know may or might, either one of those you can use interchangeably. It's just fine. So may or might, I'm saying there's a possibility. It might happen. It may happen. Second example, I may or I might go to the party tonight. And that again is the future, and I'm saying it's a possibility. It might happen. Maybe yes, maybe no. And once more, it's not saying the degree, it's not saying how certain or uncertain we are, it's just a possibility. And with that, we do not add an S to modal verbs when we're using the pronoun he, she, or it. Our examples, he can play the guitar well. She might make dinner for us, right? So once more, looking and remembering our modal verbs and our first covering of modal verbs once more. If you need to refresh and remind yourself, go back to lesson 50 and we're talking about modal verbs 1. Today we are talking about modal verbs number 2. So give me a moment. Hello, Zayman. Hello, Louise. Let's see, Dapu, Oscar, Fatih, Peter Pavarov. I want to say hello to everyone, all our new students. Looks like Ellen, Ahmad, Zayman. Yes, good. Glad to have you guys in class. All right, so our modal verbs, and this is our second session of modal verbs. You should order the steak. It's really good here. So today we're going to be looking at should and must as our modal verbs. So you should do that. You should order the steak. It's really good. So I could say you should watch the videos with Mr. Neil and Mr. Joshua as well. And of course, Mr. Sean, because those are great videos as well. And you really should watch those videos. It will help you with your English. So I'm telling you what I think your course of action should be, what I think should happen in the future. Our example, you should order the steak, giving you advice almost. It's really good here. So that's our example. And when we are talking about should, right? So should, and then the negation, so the negative, should not, we shorten it to shouldn't. As always, I want to remind you that when we see that apostrophe at the end of a word followed by a letter or by a consonant, and it's T or S, when we see the apostrophe, if it's an apostrophe S, it's possible that it's showing ownership or that it's shortened down from is. So Abby's class, that would be A-B-B-Y, my name, Abby's apostrophe S class, that shows ownership of my class. Or if I say Abby is a teacher, it would in the same way be A-B-B apostrophe S, but I'm shortening it from Abby is a teacher to Abby's a teacher. So again, I want to remind you when you see that apostrophe, that lets us know if it's an S, it might be ownership or possession. But here we see that that apostrophe means that we've taken two words, in our example, should and not, and we've shortened them down together. So the words that we need to know today for our modal verbs should and should not, or shouldn't. Okay, give me a moment. I want to check over in our comments. Ibrahim says, you should answer my question. Yes. Oh, Nandish. Hello, Nandish. Good to have you. Yes, I should answer your questions, but I don't always have time. So I do not always have time. So you should post your questions at the end of the video once it is online. You should post your questions or comments there, and I will do my best to get to them, because a teacher should always work for their students. That's what I think, at least. Okay, continuing on. So our modal verbs. Now, what is should, or what does it mean? And here you should pay attention because it's really important and it's a really great word and great modal verb to understand. It's very important in English. So I hope you will. You should pay attention. And again, it's so great because if you're unclear, you can go back and watch this video later. So should. Should expresses or shows what the speaker thinks is the right or the best thing to do. So almost like giving advice. Should expresses what the speaker thinks is the right or the best thing to do. And it's often used when we're giving advice. So our first example, I should quit. We see this woman breaking a cigarette. We know that smoking is unhealthy, and she's saying, I should quit. And Maybe some people might say that I should stop drinking so much coffee, but I love coffee, so I'm not going to stop. Should. Okay, once more, the speaker, or in our writing, of course, the writer, we're telling what we think is the best or the right thing to do, and it's usually with advice. Second one, I know that you guys, my wonderful friends and students, you never hear this example because you already do study and you're fantastic students. So I'm sure that you've never had a teacher say you should study more because you guys are amazing and you're fantastic students. So I know you already study. But I have had students where I have to tell them, I think you should study more. Now see, I added think. Stay tuned. We're going to be going over should and I think later in the lesson. So you should study more. She's saying what she thinks is the right or the best thing for that student to do. Study more. Our third example, they should be careful. And we see two people and they are rock climbing. So climbing rocks, it can be very, very dangerous. So they should be careful. My advice to them is to be careful. You should be careful if you're rock climbing. And our last one, there's our shouldn't. You shouldn't do that. You should not do that. So that's the negation. That's should in the negative, saying no, you should not do that. Right? So should. It expresses, it shows what the speaker or the writer thinks is the best thing to do. And that's usually when we're giving advice. Now, it's also used to ask for help or to ask for advice. So our first question, our first example, what should I do? So the woman here in our picture, she's asking for advice, and the gentleman could say, you should get more sleep. So she's asking what his advice is. She's asking what her course of action should be. When he answers, he will also use should because he is now giving the advice and he's telling her what her course of action should be. So should is used to ask for help or advice. What should I do? And I have students a lot of times either in class or students online that say, what should I do to learn more vocabulary? What should I do? And I answer, you should study, memorize a lot. Another really great way to learn vocabulary, and it's kind of a fun way, is watch movies or watch TV shows and make sure you have your pause so that when you hear new vocabulary that you're unsure of, you can pause the movie and look it up. And that's a great way to learn new vocabulary. So that's something you should try. And of course, we'll be going over vocabulary the second half of this lesson, so stay tuned. So you should continue to watch this video because we'll be going over vocabulary. When students ask me, what should I do to learn more words? Say, you should watch movies. That's one way, and it's a fun way. You should watch these videos. Second example, what time should I wake up tomorrow? Right? And so most of us at night, we set our alarms, we set our cell phones or our clocks because we should wake up at a certain time. So you think, what time should I wake up? Our last picture and example, how long should I cook the chicken? So asking for advice, asking for knowledge, how long should I cook the chicken? Right? So should, we're either expressing or showing, giving our advice, or should, we are also asking for our advice. And make sure we know that when we're asking, we have that question mark. All right. As I mentioned, we often use should with I think, or I don't think. I do not think. Let's look at our examples. I think you should buy that shirt. So that is just giving a little more emphasis that that is my advice or that is my opinion. I think you should buy that shirt. Second one, I don't think you should do that. Now, here's a question that I'm wondering if I'm sure someone is going to ask this question, so let me see if I can read your minds. Can we do a double negative? Could we do, I don't think you shouldn't do that? Okay, that's a double negative with don't, do not, think you should or should not. There are some times where that might make sense, but instead of making a double negative, I don't think you shouldn't do that, we would usually just change both the negatives, switch them to positives, and say, I do think you should do that. So again, it would be the best way for our grammar, and it would sound more natural, especially when we're speaking. Don't use a double negative with do not and should not. Those two negatives cancel each other out to make two positives. So you're saying the same thing. I don't think you shouldn't do that. Change it to I do think you should do that. But with this picture, that guy looks like he's doing some dangerous things. I don't think you should do that, or I know that I shouldn't do that. Our third example, I think we should get some pizza. So we're saying, again, what our opinion is or our advice. I think we should get some pizza. And our last one, we don't think you should go. So we do not think you should go. And once more, we wouldn't say we don't think you shouldn't go. We would just take both of those negatives. We don't think you shouldn't go, cancel out the negatives, and instead, you're saying the exact same thing, same meaning. We do think you should go, right? So once more, we oftentimes use I think or I don't think when we're using should, when we're expressing our thoughts, our opinions, or giving our advice. Give me one moment. I want to check over in the questions. Sway, hello, good morning. Okay, yes, wonderful. Good to see you guys. Excellent. All right, let's continue on. Now, must. Let's look at must is the same as should in that it's must and we can shorten it. We can shorten should not, and we can also shorten must not. So must not. And again, there's our must, our apostrophe lets us know we're taking two words, we're shortening them together for one word. So both should not and must not can be shortened. So must or must not, mustn't. So must and mustn't, they're a little bit stronger than should, right? They're a little bit stronger than should. And we'll be going over our examples and I'll be showing you how that is, how it is that must is a little stronger, has a little stronger meaning than should. So must and mustn't, they're used to express an obligation. Now, what's an obligation? An obligation is something that you have to do or something that you need to do. Okay, if you're obligated to do something, that means you need to do it. You have to do it. So when I went to bed last night and I'm thinking, what time should I set my alarm? I know I have to be to SCEL early for my morning class because that's an obligation that I have. I'm obligated. I must be to SEL early so I can have wonderful class time with you guys. So when I think, what time should I set my alarm? I have to set it earlier because I am obligated. It is my obligation. I must, I need to be here early for you guys. So I must set my alarm earlier. So must, mustn't, they're used to express an obligation. That's something you need to do or something you really, really should do. And it is stronger than should. Let's look at our examples. You must try harder. And we see probably a dad with his son, and we call that arm wrestling, right? In English, what they're doing, we call arm wrestling. So you must try harder. If he said you should try harder, it's kind of showing a possibility. Like maybe you might, maybe you might not. If that should, when he says you must try harder, it's a lot stronger. It's saying you really, really should try harder. Our second example, we must hurry. So I was in California last weekend, and when I was at the airport flying back to lovely Spokane, there was a gentleman who his plane was getting ready to leave. And so the airport official said, you must hurry, you must hurry. You're going to miss your plane. You must hurry. So very, very strong. He's telling him, absolutely, absolutely, this is what you must do. We must hurry. You must hurry. He's not giving advice. He's saying absolutely what needs to happen. You must hurry. Our last example, you mustn't do that. So here we have a police officer, and we can assume that the young lady driving, maybe she was driving too fast. And so he's saying, you mustn't do that. You must not do that. We know if a speed limit is 50 miles per hour, so in America, we measure by miles. If the speed limit is 50 miles per hour and you're going 70 miles per hour, you are breaking the law because the law says 50 miles. So yes, a police officer can absolutely say, you mustn't do that. He's not suggesting it. He's not giving you advice that maybe you take his advice, maybe you don't take his advice. He's saying it directly. This cannot happen. You cannot go over 50 miles per hour. You mustn't do that. And with that, must, as we saw in our last example, must is often used by people that are in a position of authority. So authority just means someone higher, okay? Someone that has authority over other people. As a teacher, I have authority over my classroom, over my students, okay? When I'm talking, of course, my students should be quiet because I have authority, all right? I'm a little bit higher. The same way that a police officer, they have authority. They are there to enforce, so make sure that rules and laws are followed. And the same way, if you're at college or the university, the professor is in a position of authority. So you could think of it, someone in a position of authority, if you're an employee, so a worker, your boss is in a position of authority. So it just means someone above you or more powerful. So must is often used by people in authority, right? Because obviously, if you're in class and one of your friends or classmates tells you to do something, you can say, you can't tell me to do anything. We're friends, we're students. But if your teacher tells you to do something, the teacher's in a position of authority. So it's a good idea. You really, really should listen. You must listen to someone in authority. Our examples. Once more, we have our police officer. We know they're there to keep people safe. It says you must move your car. So he's not saying if you want to or if you feel like it. He's saying do it. You must move your car. Second one, the doctor. Once more, we know that smoking is not healthy. It's not good for us. And he's saying you mustn't smoke. You must not smoke. So as a doctor, when we're talking about health and our bodies and staying healthy, we know that a doctor is in a position of authority because that's what they do. They work with human beings. They work with people and their bodies. They know most about what is or what is not healthy. So a doctor would be in a position of authority. So if a doctor says you must not smoke, he's not giving advice. He's saying don't do it. And he can do that because he's in a position of authority. Our last example, here's what we had before. And I know, again, none of your teachers have ever told you this because you guys are fantastic students. But I have had students before where I've had to say, you must study more. Again, I'm not giving them advice. If you want to study, study. Or if you don't want to study, don't study. I'm saying you must study more. This is a necessity. This is something that you are obligated to do. As a student, you are obligated to study. So as a student, you must study more. Right? And continuing on, mustn't, must not. It can be used to say that something is not okay to do. So with the doctor saying you mustn't smoke, you must not smoke, he's saying that smoking is not okay to do. So mustn't, and again, it has a stronger meaning than should. You mustn't take photos. So it's not okay to take photos. A couple of years ago, I was in Rome and I was at the Vatican, and probably one of the most famous paintings in the world is the Sistine Chapel. And Michelangelo, about 500 years, painted it. So the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican in Rome, very, very famous paintings, very old. And because of that, you're not allowed to take pictures, right? You're not allowed to take pictures inside of the chapel, inside of the church where the Sistine Chapel paintings are. So they're very, very strict, right? So that means that they really enforce that rule. I even saw a man who was taking pictures, and two of the guards took him and made him leave. So they are very serious. You mustn't take photos. You must not take photos. The meaning, so we're looking at our example again, it's not okay. It's not okay to take photos. So there you go. If you're ever in the Sistine Chapel, don't take photos. You mustn't take pictures. They'll kick you out. And that's usually the same we find in most museums. Most museums, places of art, places of history or culture, you mustn't take photos. Our second one, she mustn't come late. She must not come late. And that meaning is just, it's not okay for her to come late. As with the gentleman in the airport that I talked about earlier for my example, he mustn't be late or he will miss his plane. The plane will leave and he will be stuck. So he mustn't be late. He must not be late. So that means it's not okay for him to be late because the plane, it's leaving. Now, Same with should, or in a similar way as we have with should. If you want to suggest something to someone or give them strong advice, you use must. So again, as a teacher, I'm in a position of authority, and I can tell someone, my students, I'm giving them strong advice, telling them you must study. Our examples here, you really must see that movie. Now, even though with our examples, looks like a brother and a sister or friends, even though one of them is not in a position of authority, because they have knowledge of the movie, because they have seen the movie, that puts them in a position that they can give advice. You really must see that movie. The reason is because I love the movie so much, right? So when I said I have students ask me, what should I do to learn more vocabulary? I would say, you should watch movies. You must try at least watching one movie and see if you get new vocabulary. I think that's something that you must try, and it's a fun way to learn vocabulary. Although hopefully you have fun with our videos as well. Our second example, you must eat at that restaurant sometime. So again, I have knowledge of the restaurant. I have been there. I have eaten there. I have had the food. And it was so amazing that I'm giving advice, but strong advice. You must eat at that restaurant sometime, right? And on the same trip, I found an amazing restaurant that was not popular with the tourists. We know that in places where people vacation or take holidays a lot, there's a lot of tourists. Stay tuned, because tour is actually one of our vocabulary words. So I went someplace where there aren't many tourists, and I found this amazing restaurant, and it was some of the best Italian food I've ever eaten. So 2 years later, when one of my friends was going to Rome, said, you must eat at this restaurant. It's amazing. It's fantastic. While you are in Rome, you must eat at this restaurant. And again, that's because I have knowledge of the restaurant. I have the experience of eating at that restaurant. And I'm giving my friend very strong advice. You really should do this. You must eat at that restaurant. All right. But with that, must is not usually used for questions, right? We can use should or shouldn't for questions, absolutely. Should I study or should I sleep? Or should I not go to the party? But we wouldn't use must. So that's one way that must and should, mustn't and shouldn't are not the same, because must, we don't usually use that. We wouldn't really use that for questions, right? But as for questions, give me one moment. I'm gonna look over at our live chat, see if there's anything I can help you with. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at one question. Have is something people feel the need to do for themselves, not other people. If I read that question correctly, and have, if we're using it as an action, you have to do this, that could be anything. That could be for yourself, that could be for other people, that could be for anything. If I'm reading your question correctly on have, if I didn't understand it correctly, once this video is posted, again, just go to the bottom and in the comments, post your question again, and I'll try to get to it. Oh, Leo, really great question. Really fantastic question. Shall, S-H-A-L-L. Shall is very, very formal. Very formal. So that we don't really use shall anymore. It's more of an older word. Now, certainly, if you said shall, people would understand what you were talking about, but shall, and let's put that up real quick. So shall and shall not. We can say shall not, but we cannot say shalln't. S-H-A-L-L apostrophe or N apostrophe T. Shalln't is not a word. So shall means like should. Shall we go to dinner? Should we go to dinner? So the one way that might be helpful for that is remember that both shall and should start with S. But shall is much more formal, and formal to the extent that we don't really use it anymore. But really great question, Leo. Really fantastic question. Yes, shall is formal, but if you hear someone say it, movies. If you watch a movie and maybe the story is set a long time ago, you would probably hear the characters in the movie, you might hear them say shall. So there you go. Just so you know, shall means like should. And shall not, but we couldn't shorten it to shalln't. That's not a word. All right, so I want to try something real quick. We are going to do a little exercise together, and I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to work on this. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. But first, let's go over the directions. And once more, what's nice is once this video is finished and it's posted online, you can go back and do all these questions again. But I'll give you a couple minutes just to work on them, do a little exercise yourself, and I'll scroll down so that we'll go through about 8 or 10 questions, sentences together. So, looking at our exercise, what are the directions? We're going to look at the sentences and give advice, but we're going to give advice using should, and we're going to start our sentences with I think or I don't think. And there's little hints in the sentences. So our first example, John smokes too much and is always sick. So the hint there, well, if he smokes and he's always sick, the hint is that he should quit smoking. So it would be, I think John should quit smoking, or he should quit smoking. We're using, again, I think John should quit smoking. So our first 3 sentences, and again, I'll make them bigger and I'll give you guys a few minutes to look at these. Don't worry if it goes too quick. You can watch the video later and work on this exercise. But the next ones, my sister has a bad grade in math class. We're saying study more. Okay, using should or think. Penny is flying to Los Angeles at 5:30 in the morning. Jerry's cat is hungry. It's raining, and Wayne wants to go for a walk. Melissa doesn't want to stay home tonight. So let's look at those sentences, make them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to jump off screen and give you guys a few minutes to work on these. So again, you're going to rewrite the sentences, either write them or think in your head, starting with I think. How would you change that with should or shouldn't? So there's a few minutes and I'll scroll down so we'll have a couple more questions. Okay, I'm back. So let's go back up to the top. So again, I know we went through that really quick, but go back and rewatch this video and you can pause it. You can work on these exercises. So again, our directions are to start with I think and should. And the last part in the brackets is what we're putting in. So that really, there's a lot of different ways that we could write these sentences. How I'm going to be going over them for the correct answer is just using I think or I don't think or should or shouldn't. And then again, as you work on these exercises, look to the very, let's see, oh, I can't point to that. look to study more. That's what we're putting in the sentence. So, my sister has a bad grade in math. I think my sister should study more. And as I was looking over our live feed and the answers you guys were giving, you guys are fantastic. All of you guys did a really, really good job. And Nor, I saw that you joined us today. Hello, my friend. Glad to have you. I saw one comment said, Abby should share the link. I would share the link with you, but this is part of our classes, and so it's just for teachers and students here, so it's not a link that I can share. Otherwise, I would, but I saw the comment, Abby should share the link. I'm sorry, I can't. But as I said before, you can go back and watch this video, do these exercises again. So I think you should go back and try this again. C. Penny is flying to Los Angeles at 5:30 tomorrow morning. Very early. So I think Penny should go to bed, or I think Penny shouldn't, I think Penny shouldn't go to bed late, right? She needs to get up early. She should get up early because she mustn't miss her plane. Third one, Jerry's cat is hungry. I think Jerry should feed his cat, right? I'm telling what I think, my advice, what I think Jerry's course of action or what Jerry's actions should be. I think Jerry should feed his cat. Continuing on, it's raining, so it is raining, and Wayne wants to go for a walk. So I think Wayne should take an umbrella. And if you're not familiar with what an umbrella is, an umbrella is something that keeps you dry. We know that they collapse down and you open them and they fan out and they stay over you. You carry them to keep you dry, keep the rain or the snow from getting on you. So if it's raining and Wayne wants to go for a walk, I think Wayne should take an umbrella. Looking at F, Melissa doesn't want to stay home tonight. So I think Melissa should go out, right? If she does not want to stay home tonight, then I think she should go out. And go out just means to leave the house to do something fun. Maybe go to a movie, maybe go to dinner, but I think she should go out. Tina is driving too fast and she might get stopped by a police officer who of course will tell her you mustn't drive that fast. So Tina is driving too fast. I think Tina should slow down. And in another way, if we were using must, Tina must slow down. H. Fred is wearing a very ugly shirt. Ooh, Fred. Fred is wearing a very ugly shirt. I do not think Fred should wear that shirt. So I'm giving my advice. I'm giving my opinion. Fred, that's a very ugly shirt. I don't think Fred should wear that shirt. Katie is working very hard and is very tired. And I have students that are just such amazing and wonderful students that sometimes they'll stay up way too late at night working on their homework or studying. And we know that you must get enough sleep. As a teacher, I even tell my students, if you have a test and you have 1 extra hour at night, instead of studying 1 extra hour, sleep 1 extra hour, because that will actually help you with your memory and thinking clearly when you go to take that test. So you absolutely, so I'm saying very strong, you must get enough sleep. So I will tell my students, take a break. When you're studying, you should take a break. If you study for an hour, maybe take a 5-minute break, get some coffee. So Katie is working very hard and is very tired. I think Kate should take a break. And our last one, Tony's room is really messy. So that means like dirty. Tony's room is really messy and his friends are coming over to visit. Friends are coming over to visit Tony and his room is messy, it's dirty. I think that Tony should clean his room. Make it nice and clean for when his friends come over. That's what I think Tony should do. That's my advice to Tony. Clean your room. I think you should clean your room. Or maybe his mother might say, Tony, you must clean your room. And we know that mothers and fathers, our parents, are in positions of authority, especially when we still live with our parents. And so they can tell you, you must clean your room. Tony, if your friends are coming over, I think you should clean your room, right? So again, if you didn't have time, I know we went through that exercise pretty quick. Go back, rewatch the video, and do this exercise again. Once more, we're including the words or phrases in the bracket, but as I saw in our live feed, you guys did a great job writing it in other ways as well. So if you want to do this exercise once more, which I think you should do, it's good practice. Try writing these sentences so that it's the same meaning, but you're just saying it in a different way. That would be a really good exercise that I think you should try. All right, we have a couple minutes left of class time. And so with that, I'm looking over at my comments. Wonderful. Okay, so let's jump over to our vocabulary for our last little bit of class. So in review, probably. It will probably rain tonight. Probably is an adverb and it means most certainly. And with these vocabulary words, our last set of vocabulary words you can find in lesson 49. And all the lessons before that also have vocabulary words. Our video 50, we were just working on modal verbs, but our list, including probably, you can find that in video 49. So probably, it will probably rain tonight. So that's an adverb and it means almost certain or almost certainly it will rain tonight. Quit. We saw in our examples with modal verbs and should or shouldn't, must, mustn't, you should quit smoking. So quit just means stop. Our example, why did you quit your job? So that would mean, why did you leave your job? Why did you stop working at your job? So quit means to stop. So as a teacher, I could tell my students, quit looking at Facebook. You must pay attention. Quit looking at your phone. You must do the exercise. And of course, I never have to say that because I have amazing students. But quit just means stop. Retire. I never want to retire. I will work forever. Retire just means to quit working, but to quit working or stop working because you're older. So in America, about 65 years old is about the age that most people retire. So they're old enough to quit working. So retire means to quit or stop working, but it's within the context of you're retiring because you're old enough. Now, it could also be used, Bill Gates. So we know who Bill Gates is, one of the richest men in the world. So Bill Gates could retire. He's not 65 yet. He's not that old yet, but he is so rich, and rich is going to be one of our vocabulary words. He's so rich, so that means he has so much money that he can retire early. You also might hear retire if someone said, I'm going to retire to bed. I'm sleepy, I'm going to retire to bed. You might also hear that used and it just means go to bed. But for our purposes, how you'll most often hear retire is to quit your job, but because you're old enough. So my father just retired last year and he worked at UPS, United Parcel Service. You guys probably know they're the big brown trucks and they deliver packages. My father retired after 38 years working there. My father is a very good, very amazing man, and I was very happy when he was able to retire. There we go, rich. So rich, of course, would be our adjective, and it means wealthy. So you have a lot of money. Bill Gates is very, very, very rich. So rich just means you have a lot of money. So you can make it stronger by saying very rich or really rich. Now you'll also hear rich used with foods. So chocolate cake, one of my favorite desserts. If I had chocolate cake and there was a lot of chocolate and a lot of frosting, I could say, wow, this is a very rich dessert. Or if I had soup and the soup, there was a lot in the soup and it was very creamy, it was very good, I could say it was very rich. So rich is an adjective. It most times when you hear it will be used as wealthy, to have a lot of money, but you could also hear it and you could also use it in referring to food, saying a food, there's chocolate and then there's a lot of chocolate. So if I had a very rich chocolate cake, that means there's a lot of chocolate in it. It's very dense. I like rich food. And as a teacher, I know that I'll never be rich because all over the world, no one goes into teaching to get rich. We go into teaching because we love it. And with that, I have loved the hour that I love the hour that I am able to spend with you guys every week. We actually have gone a couple minutes over time, but I want to look over at our comments, our questions. Looks good. So again, for our modal verbs, if you would like to go back to video 50, we first introduced our modal verbs. And if you would like to go back and watch vocabulary, all of our videos have vocabulary. For our list, the last time we were looking at our vocabulary list was video 49. But with that, I hope that you will check out all of our Smrt Live videos. Again, my name is Abby. This is Pre-Intermediate English. I hope you've enjoyed the video. scroll down to the bottom, leave a comment or question while you're there. If you enjoyed today's video, like I enjoyed being here with you, you could give a thumbs up. And also, if you guys just want to say hi, in the comments, I would love to comment back and say hello back to you, my wonderful, my fantastic students. So with that, once more, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, or a good night. And I will see you here next week for more pre-intermediate Smart English. Bye.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel. Also, if you want the full experience of being a student in a Smart Live class with things like homework and teacher feedback, follow the link and become a premium subscriber. Also, if you want to see more videos from this class, check out our playlist.